Cosplay Stitch and Seam. I'm Pannon.
I'm the Fire.
And I'm David.
Hello, David.
Yes.
Hello, Pannon. Hello,
And
Mercedes. How are we today?
We are doing.
Good. I hope all our listeners at home are also doing well. If you guys would like to reach out to us, you can do that via email at cosplaystitchandseam@gmail.com
Or you can go to the website, cosplaystitchandseam.com, and fill out our fancy forms there. I really keep wanting to say googly Google forms, but it's not those anymore. They're actual legit forms now.
Yeah, you made it so official.
Yeah. Or
go to the Facebook page, and while you're on the Facebook page, tell us what you're working on. We have a group that wants to hear it on our Work in Progress Wednesdays and our Finished Fridays. We would love to see what you're working on, and our community would love to see what you're working on too. If you're not a big fan of Facebook, we totally get it. We do have a Discord. You can find the link to the Discord on our website, and we would love to have you join us. It's always great to see new people pop in. We have a whole channel dedicated just to horror stories, so we would love to see what you're doing. While you're on the internet, if you would like to support the show, there are many different ways that you can do that. Leave us a review on any podcasting app that lets you. Tell a friend. And if you have a few bucks, we have a coffee account, KOFI, Cosplay Stitch, and a Patreon, patreon.com/Cosplay Stitch. For $3 a month, we'll give you a shout out on the episode, every single episode. And for $5 a month, you can join our Cosplay Chronicles. Just as a recap, that's our D&D game, and you can even be there to help influence what might happen. We've got a game coming up soon, and I cannot wait to see what happens.
Yes. If you'd also like to support a cosplayer in their endeavors, you can go to foxbeauty.store, where you can get all kinds of lovely cosplay makeup, and use the promo code Stitch and Seam to get 10% off your purchase of all vegan, not tested on animal products.
woo! Yay!
All right. I'm very excited today. We have another author guest.
I'm
today
so
we
pumped
have...
for this.
Yeah. Today we have Carol Pinchefsky, author of Turn Your Fandom into Cash. Hi, Carol. How are you?
Hi, doing very well, thank you.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to create this book?
My name is Carol Pinchefsky. I've been in fandom, I suppose, my entire life. But I first attended a convention. My first convention, I was 15 years old, and it was 1984. It was LunaCon. Wow. So, yeah, because I'm old. And it was wonderful. And we went with the high school science fiction club, and I got to meet like-minded people who were actual adults doing what I loved. And I just fell in love with everything about it. But the thing is, the conventions I started attending when I was younger were mostly literary conventions, and with some media conventions thrown in. And it turns out they're really very different and yet very similar. The emphasis on literary conventions is of course books, and media conventions was about media. But I think conventions actually really took off in the mainstream because of cosplay. I think, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And as soon as photographers got in on this and shared the images with newspapers, that I think that fandom really blossomed. So we have cosplay to thank for that. I'm a writer. I started with fan fiction, of course. Yeah. My best friend and I, we used to write stories about, Kirk and Spock fighting over us.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah. And then from there, I've just always been writing. And from there, a friend said, hey, why don't you just submit your writing to thus and such publication? And I did, and I built up, and I've written for Sci-Fi, the New York Times, Time Out New York, Playboy. I was the official geek blogger for Forbes for almost 2 years. And I'm working on my first assignment, fingers crossed, for CNN. So,
wow,
excellent!
So cool.
Yeah. Well, if I can get through the editorial process, it will be excellent. But I'm still waiting to hear back. So,
yeah.
Oh,
that's so amazing. Cool.
And then my friend Heather Krasna wrote a book called Jobs That Matter, and it's about getting a job in public service, getting a job in government work, and getting a job with nonprofits. And she said, hey, you should write a book like this about fandom. And I said, okay. Then, but the other reason that I wrote this book is because I want people to practice safe geekery. I see that the dealers' rooms can be real cavalcades of intellectual property infringement, and one really bad lawsuit can just bring down the whole show. And so I want people to, be aware of what they're getting into, and if they've got their own intellectual property, how to treat that. How to start your own business, how not to infringe on someone's.
Yeah, the part of your book where you go over like copyright and all that kind of stuff, I loved that section so much because I try to talk that over with along with teaching kids to code, I also teach kids how to make their own YouTube channels.
Fantastic.
And talking about copyright is so difficult and putting it in a way that's understandable to kids outside of, if it's not yours, don't touch it.
Yeah, but I noticed that there are fans who can kind of work around it. It's called fan signaling. I've noticed a lot of fan signaling, and that's how I've acquired several pieces of clothing and just items that I've found off of Etsy. You kind of say, well, instead of Star Wars, instead of Rey or Leia, this is Galactic Princess. This is a Galactic Princess dress. Instead of saying, Rey, it's Galactic Scavenger dress. And instead of Star Trek, it's, what is a good one? Galactic military. I'm not sure the signaling for Star Trek, but
Space scientist.
Space scientist, yeah. But I find that fan signaling and not saying straight out like this is a Batman dress is actually a better way of doing it. In fact, I have a dress that was once labeled Batman, but then became like Dark Avenger.
Nice. So I kind of want to make a dress that's based off of Batman and call it the Broody Man dress.
Broody Man dress.
Excellent.
Oh, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
I love it.
I think one of my favorite things in reading through your book was I feel like as cosplayers, as fandom creators, we hear a lot of times like, oh, you're so good at blank, you should make money off of it. But there's no advice on yeah, but how? Or just kind of throws you, well, just look it up online. And your book outlines so many resources and so many specifics of how to get that started and how to build yourself up online and how to make money. I thought that was incredible.
Oh, thank you. It's just so flattering to hear people say kind things, because when you write, you are pretty much working in a vacuum. That's the hard thing about being an extrovert, a writer and an extrovert at the same time. And, I just don't know if what I'm writing will land.
To piggyback off of what Pannon was saying, you have several sections of if you are an introvert, do these things. And
I appreciated that so
I think
much.
you wrote that for me. To be honest, I read that and I was like, Carol, how did you know?
Yeah. No, actually, I think cosplayers are the extroverts of the geek community. If you talk to the makers, the people in the robotics field, they're not really extroverted. I think have this unique ability to stand up in front of crowds and say, this is who I am today. I am reflecting this aspect of this character that I want to reflect in my personality. Here I am. And actually that makes you really good influencers. Cosplayers make excellent influencers. So how big are your fan followings?
Pretty decent. We get decent download numbers.
My snort was for my personal page, not for the podcast.
I'll do that.
It's true though, because a lot of times if there's a new product though in the cosplay community, one of the reasons I will try it is because another cosplayer that I know or that I respect the opinion of is like, hey, I really love this new product. I'm like, whoa. And I see how they use it in different ways, and I'm like, I kind of want to try that. So
it's whenever I think of Warbla, it's because of Kamui cosplay.
Right. Yeah. I love love that site. I love Kamui Cosplay. I mean, and by the way, they are killing it. But I think one of the reasons that they are able to make a living, they are able to monetize their cosplay. It's they not only have these amazing books that outline everything they do. They also have YouTube channels. So I noticed the people who really make money in fandom, they tend to have multiple streams of income. So I think Kamui Cosplay is a brilliant example. However, this is the downside. Kamui Cosplay, they're based in Germany, I believe. Yeah, so they don't have to pay health insurance. Yeah. So small businesses in the States have this prime disadvantage that the ones in Europe don't have. One of my interviewees, unfortunately, I couldn't use her in my book because she didn't get back to me to sign my release form, which was unfortunate. But she said, "Yeah, I just, I make enough money to support myself. I do this, I do that." And she genuinely does not make that much money. And I said, "How could you afford to live? How do you pay for your rent?" "Oh, well, I live with my mother, and my boyfriend pays part of the rent, and I give my mother some money, and and so forth and so on." And I went down her expenses, and I realized, oh, where's her health insurance? So yeah, that is a problem that small businesses have, which is one of the more important things I learned while writing the book. Nobody goes it alone. Not one person is able to say, I started this business on my own. The myth of Elon Musk creating Tesla is a fabrication. It is pure fabrication.
Yeah.
I rely on my husband for health insurance. This is why I'm able to do this. Because I do earn money as a writer. I would have been considered a successful freelance writer until I wrote a book. Until I spent time writing a book. But but I could not afford my own health insurance. So yes.
Oof, for sure, it gets so high.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of all the research that you've done, one of the things I was really impressed by with the book was how current a lot of the websites and studies that you reference are. How long did it take you to do all of the research for this book?
Oh, God.
A lot of compiling of information.
Oh, God. I had to write this and rewrite this several times. So if the fact that you consider it current is, wow, I'm so happy. Because there is not a lot, but there are a few things that are already outdated since I've gone to press. For example, I have the section on when is it the best time to post to Twitter? When is it the best time to post to Instagram? Well, Twitter it used to be something like, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. EST, but that's not true anymore. Pretty much every time during the week on Twitter is good, but not the weekends. Instagram is good. Oh God, I can't remember my current stats, but yeah. The times to post are completely outdated. But it took a few years to write this book. I wrote a proposal. That took a while because in order to write a proposal, you really have to put everything that you are going to write down on paper. So you kind of have to halfway write it in your mind. And then you send it out to agents and hope they pick you up. And then the agents reject you and reject you and reject you. And so much rejection. Oh my God. And then they say, yes, but, and that's when you have to do the other rewrite on what the agent wants to see. And then they eventually send it to a publisher, rejection. And then the publisher says, oh, well, that's great, but now we want you to write it this way. So I kind of rewrote this book a lot. There's a lot of rewriting as much as writing. But as a sidebar, I proposed a book on cosplay in, I think it was 2009. There were no books on cosplay. Sorry, there were 3 books on cosplay and 2 were books of photography. And another book was definitely written by, two really young women, really young 20-somethings who they were great. They did a great job. But I looked at it and said, I have a completely different take on this and I'd love to do it much better. And I was rejected all over town. But the rejection that stung was Quirk Books, who I absolutely love, because Quirk Books said, there is no place to shelve this.
Oh, geez.
There is no place to put this on the shelf. And since then, there have been a zillion books on cosplay.
Yeah.
I was like, little did they know.
Yeah, absolutely. And Quirk Books wanted, the editor said, oh yeah, I would love this book. But then the sales team said, nope.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So eventually it found a home with Career Press, which is good because, it's a business publication. I got a notice in Fortune magazine because they are a business publication. But this is their fun book. This is their non-serious light book. But I was thrilled to be accepted by them. Absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
I'm glad too, because it's a great book. Like it's fun with all the little caricatures all through it and the comic book style. Like that makes it extra fun. And then all the information in it is just really helpful. Like there's going to be some things I'm going to try for the podcast from it.
I'm so glad. For example, are you streaming to YouTube?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It's part of our Patreon.
Yeah, good. But you should let everyone on YouTube know about this because that's another potential income stream. And even if you only get, $50 a month, that stuff adds up and you continue to build and grow. So yeah, I see great things. I really liked your podcast too, by the way, because I listened to a few episodes and I loved the episode about using cosplay on your resume.
Yes.
I would think that it has to do with your the people you're applying to.
I noticed that in your book you had a section like that where you were talking about different things that you do in a convention space that you could put toward a resume, which was I was like, yes.
Yeah, it's nice to have your theories and your advice actually corroborated.
Right.
I thought, especially for convention planners, there was a whole section on doing nonprofit work. And I know a lot of these fan-based, volunteer-based conventions are nonprofit. And some of them don't ever get to the point where they even apply for nonprofit status because they don't know how to do it. So I thought that was an incredibly helpful resource.
It's a lot of paperwork. I actually I'm on the board of directors for Teachers in Space. And we teach teachers to teach students. I got my first $1 million grant recently.
Oh,
wow. Congratulations.
Sorry, not me. The mission got,
of course,
the first $1 million grant. So
that is so cool. I personally, on a personal level, I'm like, I want to know more about this because teaching is, I love teaching.
Well, then you need to join Teachers in Space. And if you are diligent and I don't know what exactly it is we're looking for at this particular moment, but yeah, you too can go to space. Or have your experiment put in space.
That'd be so cool.
We can talk afterwards about that.
So there are so many good ideas, good suggestions in the book. What was something you wish you knew before you wrote it? Is there anything you were like, oh no, I left this out?
Oh yeah. Oh my God, so much. Yeah, there was so much left on the cutting room floor. So the question is, what did I want to know? Wait, sorry, can you
Sure. It was what was something you wish you knew before writing the book?
Something I wish I knew before writing the book. Well, how long it would take to write a book. Something I wish I knew. How many people do make money and how many people don't make money, because it is really easy to make money in geek culture. It is really difficult to make a living. That's something I wish I had known. So I could have written more towards the part-time entrepreneur or
Mm.
geektrepreneur, as I called it.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, I wish I had known how difficult it is to make a living. But it is just dead simple to make money. Like you put your name or your cute little saying on a t-shirt, you upload it to like Teespring or TeeFury, and bam, someone will buy it. Someone will buy it. You tell your friends, they tell their friends, and you've just made a profit of $30. Is that going to make you a living? No, you actually have to work at it. And then instead of t-shirt design, your new job becomes marketing and promotion. So that's something else that I wish I had known. Like, for me, writing the book, like doing the job, is just a fraction of the work involved. And if you want to write a book, or make costumes for a living, or make your own video game, you can do all of that. But that's where the job begins, not ends.
That's a really good point. You mentioned you had a lot of things that got left on the cutting room floor. What's one thing you wish you could have put in the book if you had a little more space?
Not so much the space. I needed people to sign the form, the release forms. Sure. Some people felt awkward about their interviews, even though they were brilliant interviews. There were 3 people who backed out, even though their interviews were just phenomenal. But, of course, I have to respect their opinion, but it makes me sad. And ethically, I can't use it anywhere else. So it will not be seen by anyone. And stupid ethics.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you were surprised by? Did we ask that already?
Well, sort of. What was another thing that I was surprised by? Oh, right. How easy and difficult it is to get an IP license. For example, one of my interviewees wrote a proposal from nothing. He had absolutely no experience. He and his business partner just decided, like, hey, I'm going to create a role-playing game based on someone else's IP. And they wrote the proposal that they thought the IP holder would want to read. And they did it. And then, yes, they got an IP license. But actually tracking down the person in charge of licensing, this was for a video game with this incredible cult following called Elite Dangerous. The original Elite was, I think it was the first color video game. It was a space sim. It's a British space sim. I think it was like half color and half black and white, and it was incredibly expansive and really detailed. And there was a remake, sort of a sequel, in I think it was 2014, and it's called Elite Dangerous, and it's this incredible space sim. And the people who play, some people were playing a role-playing game, and then they said, you know what, Elite is back, hey, and make a great role-playing game, hey, let's do that. But it took them years, not to write the proposal, but to get the right people to say yes. So that was something I thought was incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
And they're a multi-million-dollar business now.
Nice. I really appreciated how much detail you went into with as far as like IP and like talking about C&Ds and your was it fan signing, signaling, fan signaling. To send out to fans like, hey, it's a product from this, but we're not going to say this.
Yes, that would be wrong. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's super helpful, and especially given that like in so many conventions, Artist Alley rules really vary, and like you might see one where certain things are allowed, but only if you fan signal the name, and then some where they're like, oh, we don't care, you can sell whatever even if you don't own it.
Yeah.
Right. I heard but could not confirm that there was a convention where the lawyers of DC Comics just walked around and slammed down some intellectual property agreement. It's like, here, give us our percentage, give us our percentage, give us our percentage. And I think that's brilliant. I think what the world really needs is a limited IP agreement, because right now IP agreements only go to incredibly large companies who can, in fact, mass produce T-shirts at 10,000 units a pop. And that's great. But then the smaller creators are left out. And it's about quality control, so I understand it. But then there are artisans who can make these astonishing handcrafted, like, jewelry boxes and just make a run of 50 of them. I would love for those to get IP licenses. I think there's a real disconnect between big business and small business. I'm a huge fan of small business, and I would like to see it promoted further.
Sure.
It's like they can create some like really cute things that, like, even if it doesn't catch on with the entire planet kind of thing, it's like this one little area of the world really loves these. And it's like, let them do it.
I agree. But there's another problem in that there are no definitive lawsuits or legal rulings. And intellectual property holders are treading carefully with their fans, which is good, because they used to just say, like, oh, you're infringing, like Star Trek did for many, many years. They just kind of stepped on any kind of fandom. And then eventually they realized, oh, we're alienating the people who love us. And I think, actually, they probably didn't say that. They probably said, oh, we're alienating our fans. We're not going to get money. I think that's actually what the real, thinking process was.
Yeah.
So, yes, so there are no definitive cases. And one of my interviewees, who's a lawyer, said, if you are sued by an IP holder, it all depends on the lawyer, the judge you are in front of. So that part makes me scared. Like, I'm afraid that really bad lawsuit can go very badly for all of fandom, which is why I think we all need to be cautious about what we sell and how we sell it.
Well, and that adds more credence to the need for, an LLC of some sort, or and you broke this down, and this was probably my favorite section, because it's always baffling. I have a friend who wants to get into the gaming industry, more app gaming, and he needed to get an LLC so he could start being considered for this project or that project or this grant. And to have a section that says there's sole proprietorship, an S corp, an LLC, here's some of the steps you would have to do. My favorite was, hey, look, more paperwork. And that took me out of it. Just a good chuckle of yeah. But we had sat down and talked about what's the process of an LLC. And it's this would be really, really nice if it was a lot more streamlined, because you have to go to these different websites, you have to get all this different data. Now you have to get an extra bank account, and you cover all of these in really great detail. And that made it so nice. And the reason that you want those things, to tie it back into, an IP lawsuit, is that if they come after you, they come after your LLC. They can't come after you directly unless that's part of the lawsuit. And there's finicky lawyer talk that they could juggle around if they wanted to, but precedent is that they'll go after the LLC, protecting your personal assets.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think LLCs are very important. My husband's grandfather, or I think it was his great grandfather, lost his toffee factory. He had a toffee factory called Turnwright's. My husband's Peter Wainwright, and his grandfather or his great grandfather had a business partner, Turner, who had some bad debts, and Turnwright Toffee Factory went under to pay for his debts. Had there been an LLC, my husband would own candy.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Wow.
No, I could have married a candy guy.
You could have been a Candy Harris. You could have been a Candy Harris.
Could have been a Candy Harris. Oh my God. But no, so that's the reason why I'm a fan of LLCs, because everything comes down to food. Yeah. So
To switch gears just a little, I noticed that there's some attitudes with fandom where people will get a little high and mighty about like, well, if you're making money off of it, you're not doing it for like the pure fandom reason, whatever.
yeah.
What
Do the IP holders do it just for the pure love?
Yeah,
No,
right.
no, they don't. They don't. And that attitude is fine. You know, if
Sure.
you don't want to make money off of something you love, like there are valid reasons not to. One, you know,
Sure.
potential IP infringement. Two, if you do what you love, it becomes work.
Mm.
And for some people, it just doesn't work for them. I very briefly was the assistant to a book agent. And then I realized like, oh, I'd have to read these books. And the idea of reading becoming something that I needed to do rather than something I just love to do. And by the way, I was famous for reading at least a book a week back in the day when I had time to read. and so I recognize that not everyone wants to do what they love for a living.
Right.
I see that, but yeah, these businesses don't just create these movies for the love of it. They do it to make a living, and they sell. The businesses don't actually sell T-shirts. You know, if you want to buy a T-shirt, Marvel is not making these T-shirts. They license out their IP. The reason they do that is, well, it becomes, well, first of all, it's profit. They don't do the work, and yet they take their 10%, their 15% cut. So, and then also when you wear someone's, you know, Batman T-shirt, you're reinforcing their intellectual property. So businesses actually do want to license out their IP. So yeah, it's basically free money for them. So although I would love to live in a world where money doesn't matter, we have health insurance to pay for.
Sure. No, I appreciated that you like went into detail on like not just like cosplay and stuff, but also like fan fiction, like how many authors have gotten their start on AO3 or like writing fan fiction and moved on, or like even just altered fanfics that they've written into critically acclaimed novels that are out today.
Yeah. God, I wish I could have interviewed Stephanie Meyer for that one reason, because I've never actually read 50 Shades of Grey, but I did many years ago. I was reading an X-Men fanfic, and I looked up this writer, and she was really good. And then just one day she stopped, and I found her. I tracked her down. I reached out to her, and I said, "So what happened? What's up with you?" And she said, "Actually, I changed all of the names, and then I started selling romance novels."
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
I had a serious computer failure many years ago before iCloud, so I lost her details, which is unfortunate. But yes, somewhere I have read a romance novel that was actually X-Men, and so my sister from another mister, she's now really into a very old fandom, Starsky and Hutch, which isn't science fiction, but it was one of the first real fandoms, weirdly enough. And I only just learned this. She could write novels and sell them as, homoerotic romances. She could absolutely do that and make a living off of it. She just doesn't want to.
That's awesome. And I like that in your book you mentioned that like making money in fandom is hard. It's a lot of work, and it's definitely not for everybody, and that it's perfectly fine to like just enjoy fandom for the creative outlet that it is.
Yeah, but I also one of the reasons I want to make my living off of it, and I sort of do, except for that pesky health insurance problem, is because I don't want to do anything else. I don't feel comfortable in other worlds. I'm just happier in my geeky world. I'm to use a phrase on a resume, I'm a domain expert in geek culture. I've forgotten more about geek culture than most people ever knew, which is to say my memories going. And there's also so much information. There's also so much goddamned information. Yeah, I mean, it's bittersweet having geek culture being the dominant culture because, all of my friends, we were all, the nerdy crew. Now everyone's a fan. Like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this.
So we've talked about a lot of the things that your book covers. What would you say is the one big takeaway that you want people to, they read your book and that's what they come away with?
The advice I got, I don't actually know if I wrote this in the book, but the best advice I ever got was from Daryl Schweitzer, who was the then editor of Weird Tales magazine. And he got it from some other important person in science fiction writing. But the advice is apply seat of pants to seat of chair. Just to say, just do it. Just do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't become a writer until someone said, just do it. Just write a freaking article. Like, okay. And I did. And here I am. So that's, I guess, the advice I want everyone to know. If you want to do something, do it. Why not start right now?
Nice.
Love that.
You have a podcast. It was an idea. No, really, it was an idea once. It was it was a few people saying like, "Hey, I should start a podcast," and you did. Yay!
Right.
Good for you guys. Good for you guys.
It's mostly because Pannon and I could not stop talking about cosplay at work.
That's true. That's true.
Fabulous.
So you mentioned like all kinds of other writing projects that you've done that you've had opportunity for in the future. What other writings have been like your favorite, and how different are they from this one?
Well, I've written a lot of really geeky listicles. I had the fortune of, there's this editor. Her name is Esther, and I follow her from job to job to job. Mm-hmm. She is this extraordinary editor who says, like, oh, I will go into your company. I will rework your company blog. I will make it better and get you hits. And one of those gigs I happened to follow her for was for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise.
Nice.
So because she's the most wonderful editor in the world, she lets me go deeply geeky. So I wrote an article called, the top 5 security flaws in Star Wars Rogue One. How to harden your security better than the rebellion.
That's amazing.
And she gave me an assignment, like how to move from project manager into manager, I think it was. And so I said, okay, well, it's a transformation. So I said, job lessons you can learn from Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That is fun.
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of those, and I had to take a break to write a book.
That's awesome, though.
And I've got a new project that I'm not talking about yet that is still in the planning stages, let's just say.
That's exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Carol, thank you so much for being on the show with us. It has been so enlightening to hear about your book. I really enjoyed reading it, and I hope our listeners will give it a try as well, especially if they're interested in turning their fandom into cash. We like to end our episodes with like a cosplay horror story or a heartwarming story. Do you have one from fandom that you want to share?
Cosplay horror story is when I tried to sew. I'm terrible at it, and I wound up sewing my skirt to my ankle.
Oh,
so
wow.
That was bad.
This is why I don't want to do sewing.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of hand stitching.
Totally.
I was an accidental award-winning cosplayer.
Oh, nice.
actually, did he win an award? Sorry, I'm sorry. Now that I think about it, I don't remember if he won the award. But basically, this friend of a friend had this costume and he wanted to appear, but then the person he was supposed to cosplay with, she couldn't make it.
Mhm.
And so I happened to be wearing a really similar dress. So, so he had me go up on stage with him because I happened to be wearing white. So that was good. And my other story, I guess it's not quite cosplay related, but I got to meet the late great Terry Pratchett. Do you know him? At a convention.
I am a huge fan.
Oh,
yeah, aren't we
amazing.
all? Because he was absolutely brilliant. But I was at the where was I? Just some party room at a World Science Fiction convention, and he walks in, and he was wearing this T-shirt that said something like, "J.R.R. Tolkien is dead." J.K. Rowling couldn't make it. Thus and such writer said no. Hi, my name is Terry. and he stands in this room and he's looking all awkward and he doesn't know anyone in the room. And he's about to leave, and then I smile and then I wave and I motioned him towards me and I said, "Hi, I'm Carol." And so we had this lovely chat because he seemed shy.
That's so cool.
And I am the person who will talk to people.
So many cool fan experiences. Dang.
Yeah. And he was great. And I asked him, I had read Good Omens. Good Omens is one of my one of the funniest books I've ever read. And I said, "Do you drive? do you drive?" Because there's this one of my favorite lines in Good Omens is, when you're driving around, I think it's the M20 in London, this highway, it's actually like grinding out prayers to Satan. That's how diabolical the road is. And I said, "So do you drive?" And he said, "No, my man does that." Like, God, it's nice to be rich.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
So yeah, he was so sweet. Except for that moment where I thought, like, oh my God, if I could say that, if I could just one time, like, "Oh, my man does that for me," like,
my candy man.
My candy man. Not candy, no more. Candy, no more. I'm gonna make toffee now.
Excellent.
So, Carol, we missed it before, but where can we find you online? Where can we buy your book?
Okay, you can buy my book wherever books are sold, and you can find me online at all the socials /Carol Pinchefsky. Carol, Carol, pin like the needle, chef like the cook, sky like the thing above you. So you can find me on Twitter, Insta, and Facebook. And also, if you go to my website, which is carolpinchevsky.com, I would appreciate it if you signed up to my newsletter. I'm sending out geeky news, and I'm giving a free chapter to anyone who signs up. Free sample. You've read it already, so you guys signed up to my newsletter. I will have geeky news, and and every so often I do use some of the interviews that were on the cutting room floor.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you again, Carol, for being on the show. It's been so incredible to hear about your book. Listeners at home, if you have a guest that you'd like to suggest or people you'd like to see interviewed on the show, you can send us an email at cosplaystitchandseam@gmail.com or
you can go to the website and fill out the forms there at cosplaystitchandseam.com, or
go to the Facebook page. And while you're on the Facebook page, let us know what you're working on. Our community wants to know what you're working on, and we just want to help you with any questions or concerns. We also have our Discord. You can get the link on our website and just join us for a good time. There's some really great shows that were announced at Comic-Con, and we've got whole channels just dedicated to talking about shows, cartoons, mangas, whatever. And while you're on the internet, if you would like to help us out, there are many different ways that you could do that. Leave us a review wherever your app will let you. Thank you so much to the 26 of you on Spotify who have left us a 5-star rating. It's amazing to see a perfect rating across the board. So thank you so much for that. And we also have a Ko-fi, KOFI, Cosplay Stitch, and a Patreon. And some of the fantastic Patreon people that we need to thank are welcoming Foxchild, Trophcause, Lydia, Rose Does, Livy Cheney, Yggdrasil, Dr. Steggy, PB and James, Cynics, Hot Riku, Renamira, Jazzy Kofed, Jaguar Queen, Gloria Shu, Sudi, Shock H, and Silver Deeds.
Thank you guys so much. You can also check out foxbeauty.store for all your geeky makeup. Use that promo code Stitch and Seam to get 10% off your purchase of all vegan, not tested on animal products. Thanks as always to Macy Roberts for the use of her music as our theme song, and David Jeffers for his amazing editing. How are your podcasts going?
They are going so stinking good. Comic Trades Monthly, where we talk about your favorite comic book collection in a book club format. This next month for August, we are talking Brandon Sanderson and The Dark One. Essentially, what if the bad guy won? Well, it's interesting. Maybe good, maybe not. Spoiler alert, I've got some feels about it, and I don't know if everyone's going to agree with me. So go check that one out. And of course, go check out The Last Voice, Season 2. We're like a third of the way through. If you are not caught up by now, you are missing out, because there is some fun stuff coming up. And the episode timeline, they're cold right now, so it's kind of nice to hear other people be cold while it's way too hot outside. So go check out The Last Voice.
Thank you. Biggest reason to check out Carol's book, Turn Your Fandom into Cash. It just makes sense. Hey. Thanks again, Carol. Bye, guys.
Bye.
I'll see you later.